dear students. Now I am going to take up the 9th standard 3rd chapter, that is atoms and molecules. In this chapter we are going to study about what do you mean by atoms and what do you mean by molecules, and what are the different types of atoms we can see, and how the research have been taken place, how the scientists have discovered the various types of atoms and how they gave the names to them, and what is the difference between these atoms and molecules, and how important it is in chemistry. So before knowing all about all these things, atoms and molecules, we will study the history of it, how the scientists have tried to discover, how they try to understand these atoms and molecules. As we have studied in the first chapter, we know that the matters around us is made up of the particles. So whenever we take any object, when we try to break them into pieces, at the end we will get the small particles. You will reach at the end you will reach the time where the particles will be no more breakable. So that particle is known as, by the Indian scientists it was known as, by the Indian philosophers it was known as Paramanu. Paramanu is the smallest particle where no more division of the atom takes place, no more division of the particles takes place. Then along with that, the other scientists try to discover what about these particles, how the matter is obtained. So when they also try to understand about the matter, they also came to know that the matter is made up of particles, and that particles are having that particle is having such a small unit where further division of that particle takes place. So that particle is known as atom. Atom is nothing but indivisible. Atom is the smallest unit of the matter where further no more division takes place of that particle. Then we can give so many examples for the matter around us. So all these matters are made up of two or more forms of elements. Okay, they are combined to they are the combination of two or more types of matters. Okay, in one matter it consists of solid as well as the liquid, or it may consist of liquid as well as the gas particles, like that. So it is a combination of various kinds of particles. Matter is containing various kinds of particles in them. So based on that, they have classified the matters into three types. They have classified them into elements and compounds. So what do you mean by elements and what do you mean by compounds? So at the end of the 18th century, the scientists tried to understand, they found the difference between the elements and compounds. So elements are nothing but they are the purest form of one type of matter, and compound is made up of different types of elements. So they got the answer for how and why these elements combine to form these compounds. So in today's class we will discuss about how the journey of discovering about the matter and elements takes place. Let us discuss now. Let us learn about the laws of chemical combination. The scientists try to understand more about this, how and why these atoms or the elements combine to form these compounds. Okay, the scientists Lavoisier and Joseph L. Proust, they did so many experiments and they gave the two laws of chemical combination. Okay, scientists have discovered so many things about these chemical combination of the elements. So the scientists Lavoisier and Joseph L. Proust found two laws of chemical combination. One is law of conservation of mass, which was given by Lavoisier, who is a scientist, and the next scientist Joseph L. Proust gave the law of constant proportions. Okay. Now let us discuss about this law of conservation of mass, which was given by Lavoisier by conducting so many experiments about the combination of chemicals. Now let us conduct an activity to understand what is this law of conservation of mass. From this activity you will be able to find out the answer. Is there any change in the mass when there is a chemical combination of elements takes place?
The law of conservation of mass. In every chemical reaction, the chemical substances react to form new products. The French chemist Antoine Laurent Lavoisier proved that in all chemical reactions, the mass of the substances produced after a chemical reaction is equal to the mass of the reacting substances. Then he proposed a law known as law of conservation of mass. The law says that matter can neither be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. The law also tells us that the number of atoms after a chemical reaction will always be the same as the number before the reaction. Our aim here is to verify the law of conservation of mass during a chemical reaction. Materials required: sodium sulfate solution, barium chloride solution, measuring cylinders, 10 ml test tube, thread, 250 ml conical flask, cork, and an electronic balance. Procedure: take the beaker containing sodium sulfate solution. Pour 5 ml of sodium sulfate solution into the measuring cylinder. Transfer it into a 250 ml conical flask. Now, take the beaker containing barium chloride solution. Pour 5 ml of barium chloride solution into a measuring jar. Transfer it into a 10 ml test tube. Take a thread. Tie the test tube using the thread. Hang the test tube in the conical flask carefully so that the solutions do not mix with each other. Take a cork and put the cork on the mouth of the flask so that the thread holding the test tube is held firmly in place. Take the conical flask and carefully weigh the flask on an electronic balance with all the contents, ensuring that the solutions do not mix, and note the reading. Take the flask from the balance, tilt it and swirl the flask so that the barium chloride solution in the test tube spills and mixes with sodium sulfate solution in the flask and forms a white-colored precipitate of barium sulfate, BaSO4, and an aqueous solution of sodium chloride, NaCl. Wait for 10 minutes to complete the reaction. Take the flask and weigh the contents of the flask again and note down the reading. It will be observed that the total mass of the reactants is equal to the total mass of the products. Hence, the law of conservation of mass is verified.
Okay, the law of conservation of mass states that whenever if the reactant A reacts with B, whenever the chemical reaction takes place, if 1 gram of A, 1 gram of A reacts with 1 gram of B, the product will be 2 gram of C. Okay, we will obtain, when A and B reacts, we will obtain the product C, which is the sum of this reactants. Okay, if 1 gram of A reacts with 1 gram of B, we obtain the product which is having the mass 2 gram. Okay, whenever there is chemical reaction takes place, okay, there is no change in the mass. The mass remains the same. So we can say that we cannot create the mass or we cannot destroy the mass. So the law of conservation of mass states that the mass will remain the constant. The law of conservation of mass states that the mass can neither be created nor be destroyed in a chemical reaction. The mass can neither be created nor be destroyed in the chemical reaction. Okay, the how much amount of mass we take before the reaction, we obtain the product which is having the equal amount of that reactants. Okay, so if I take 1 gram of A, when it reacts with 1 gram of B, we obtain the product which is having the mass 2 gram. So we here we didn't create the mass, and here the mass is not lost. So the mass remains the same after the chemical reaction. So this is about the law of conservation of mass. Now let us understand the law of constant proportion. The next thing is law of constant proportion. The scientists have noted that whenever the compound is obtained, okay, the compound is having the elements which are of the same and they are in the same proportion. Okay, the ratio of elements in the compound remains the same throughout the same. If you take sugar, okay, there is in the sugar there is carbon particles and there is hydrogen and there is oxygen. The proportion, okay, the proportion of these elements, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, will remain the same. Or if you take the water, okay, the chemical formula of water is H2O. Okay, we obtain the water from so many sources. Okay, we have the so many sources of water, but the in the water what is present? Hydrogen element and oxygen element. Here the in the compound, if I consider water as a compound, the elements remains the same in all the sources of water. The elements, that is hydrogen, oxygen, will remain the same and they are combined in the same proportion. Same elements are there in same proportion. Here H2O, if I take the mass of hydrogen is 1 and mass of oxygen is 16. So mass of hydrogen is 1 and mass of oxygen is 16 and there are 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 into 2, and there is 1 oxygen atom. So 2 by 16. So it will gives you 1 by 8 or 1:8. So they are in the ratio 1:8. So if you take any source of water, the ratio of hydrogen to water is 1:8. If I take the example of ammonia NH3, okay, here mass of nitrogen is 14 and mass of this hydrogen is 1 and there are 1 nitrogen atom and there are 3 hydrogen atoms. So when what is the ratio here? 14:3. 14 divided by 3, right? So 14:3. So whenever ammonia is there, they combined in the ratio 14:3. So this is uniform for all the elements of ammonia in the compound. Okay, by giving all these evidences, they have given the statement. This statement was given by Joseph L. Proust, the scientist who discovered this law of constant proportion. He gave the statement that in a chemical substance, the elements are always present in a definite proportions by mass. Always in a chemical substance, in a compound, the elements, okay, if I take water, the elements are hydrogen and oxygen, right? So they are always in the constant proportion. They have the definite proportions by mass. The mass will remain by the same proportion. This is the about the law of constant proportion. After learning about all these things, okay, the scientists faced a problem to understand the nature of the matter. They failed to explain the nature of the matter. They failed to give the explanation for the nature of the matter. So the next scientist, Dalton, he tried to what he did, he took the concept of laws of chemical combination, and he tried to explain the nature of the matter, and he tried to explain what do you mean by atom and all. A few scientists have explained what do you mean by atom, and few scientists gave the laws of a chemical combination. By gathering all these things, Dalton gave the theory by giving the statement saying that what do you mean by atom? Atoms are nothing but all matters, whether an element or a compound or a mixture, is composed of small particles called atoms. Atoms are nothing but atoms are present in the element or the compound or the mixture. Okay, all matters, whether an element or a compound or a mixture, is composed of small particles called atoms. So all the matters are made up of these atoms. Atoms are the smallest tiny particles. Atoms are the basic unit of the matter. It could be an element, it could be the compound, or it could be the mixture. And for this Dalton's theory, he gave few postulates. So now let us discuss about his postulates of Dalton's theory. So postulates are nothing but, okay, to prove the theory. Okay, he gave the theory. No, he explained what do you mean by atom. To prove to explain that theory, they should give some evidence. So he took the evidence from the laws of chemical combinations. So from different scientists gave different statements about the atoms. So he collected all those information and he gave the postulates for his theory. So these are nothing but the explanation of the theory. So all matter is made of very tiny particles called atoms. So this was given by different scientists. And also atoms are invisible particles which cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. So this is a law of conservation of mass. So whenever there is a chemical reaction takes place, there is the mass cannot be destroyed or it cannot be created during the chemical reaction, and the particles are invisible. Okay, we have seen in the when we conducted the activity, we couldn't able to see the particles, but only the mass remains a constant during the chemical reaction. Okay, the third one is atoms of a given element are identical in mass and chemical properties. So what do you mean by that? If I take oxygen element, okay, if you take two oxygen element, its particles, okay, oxygen, the mass, atomic mass is 16. So if you take another atom of oxygen, its mass also remains the same. Its mass will remain the same, and its property also remains the same, because they are identical, because they are same. You have taken the same element, that is oxygen. If you take atoms of a given elements are identical in mass and chemical properties. If you take one atom of oxygen, the particle size, property, all will be remain the same. This atom is equal to this atom. And if atoms of different elements have different masses and chemical properties. If you take different elements, atoms of different element, hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen, okay, hydrogen mass is 1 gram and oxygen mass is 16 gram. Okay, atomic unit. Hydrogen mass is 1 atomic unit and oxygen mass is 16 atomic units. The mass is varied and size of the element. Hydrogen is smaller compared to oxygen atom. Hydrogen atom is smaller compared to oxygen atom. They are different and its chemical property is also different. They are not similar. They show different properties. Hydrogen property is different. Oxygen property is different. They are okay. The way of reacting with other elements, the way of reacting with the metals and all varies. So this is the difference. If you take the similar elements, its atom have the same mass and chemical properties. If you take different atoms, they have different mass and chemical properties, isn't it? Okay, if you take two same materials, if you take the example of cotton and one more piece of cotton, their property, their size, everything will remain the same. And if you take one cotton and iron piece, okay, iron bar, their property will vary, right? If you take a magnetic piece and a wooden piece, their property varies because they are different. The atoms are different and they show different properties. Iron, magnet and the iron, isn't it? Okay, this is what about the postulates of his theory. The next thing is atoms combine in the ratio of small whole number to form compounds. So if you take water, as I told, H2O, okay, they are combined in the small ratio, combined in the ratio of small whole number, that is 1:8. Or if you take ammonia, they are in the ratio 14:3. So they are combined in the ratio of small whole numbers to form the compounds. So this is about this postulate. The next one is the relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in a given compound. Okay, the relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in a given compound. If you take any compound, okay, its mass will remain the constant. If A combines with the B, the product which is obtained C will have the a particular amount of compound. Always it will, they said, always it will, that constant will remain the same. The atom will have the same amount of mass. Whenever A combines with B, we obtain C. It have the constant number of atoms in them and it have the constant mass in them. So this is all about the postulates of Dalton's theory. So what he did, he collected all the information which was given by different scientists and he gave the theory of atom. So according to Dalton's theory of atom, all matters, it could be the element, compound or the element or the mixture, it is having the small particles that we call it as atoms. And he explained through the postulates. There are 6 postulates to explain that theory. So by learning all these postulates, now let us understand what do you mean by atom. In the biology chapter, we have studied that the basic fundamental unit of life is cell. Like that, okay, if you observe the mason is constructing one building. So how we construct the building? The walls are made up of the building blocks. Okay, the walls are made up of building blocks. Okay, through that single unit he is able to construct one wall. Like that, atom is nothing but, if you take any compound, any mixture, any element, there are tiny particles. These tiny particles are known as atom. Okay, so atoms are nothing but they are the tiny particles. They are the basic unit of the compound or the element or any matter. Then what about the size of this atom? The size of this atom is very small. You can whenever you break the things, okay, whenever you try to divide the things, you will attain that time where that unit cannot be divided further. So that unit is nothing but the atom. So its size you can't imagine. It is beyond your imagination. It is very small. You can't predict the size of the atom. It is invisible always. Okay, in your textbook they have given few examples to understand the radii. They have given few relative radii of few things. Okay, let us go through now. The radii of one atom of hydrogen is 10 to the power minus 10, and molecule of water 10 to the power minus 9, molecule of hemoglobin 10 to the power minus 8, grain of sand 10 to the power minus 4, ant, radii of ant 10 to the power minus 2, watermelon. Okay, the relative size of radii of watermelon 10 to the power minus 1. You can observe that the size, the relative size of radii means it is the distance from the center to the outermost point on the circle, like that. So you can imagine how small it is. All the size, the radii is given in 10 to the power minus, means it is too much very small. That means 0.000, like that much small. You can't imagine the size of these particles. Okay, nowadays in the present generation the technology have been improved. So research have been taken place to show the picture of the size of an atom. So by using the technology they have shown the image of the surface of the silicon in your textbook. So let us see how it looks. See, this picture is just imagination. It is not the real. It was taken by using the modern technologies. The size of the silicon is very less. It is almost in nanometer. Okay. The scientists have collected a few elements, right? So how we human beings have the names, like that. If we the scientists have collected few elements. Now if you don't give the name, can you able to differentiate the elements, or can you able to compare the elements? Can you able to explain about that? No, right? So when we give the names to the element, we'll easily understand. We can differentiate, we can compare them. So scientists try to give the name for the compounds. So in this picture you can see the symbols for the different elements which was proposed by Daltons. Hydrogen, one circle and one dot at the center. Then carbon, shaded circle. Oxygen, plain circle. Then phosphorus, you can see one symbol there. Then sulfur, plus symbol in the circle. So each element symbol is different from each other. So the significance of using these symbols is to identify different elements, to differentiate each element from another. While giving the symbols for some elements, he used the first letter of the element, like copper, lead, silver. Here they used the first letter in the symbol. So then slowly the scientists try to name the elements. While giving the names to the elements, in some cases two or more elements have the same first letter. For example, hydrogen, helium, they have the same letter, that is H. So in order to clarify that confusion, in order to solve that confusion, in some for some elements they have taken the name of the place where it is obtained. So for example, if the copper is found in Cyprus, so the chemical name of copper, Cu, the symbol is Cu. And for some elements they have given based on the color. The name was given based on the color. For example, gold. the name of the gold, aurum. The meaning of aurum in English means yellow. So based on the color of the element, they have named it. And after that, nowadays we use the IUPAC. That means International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry approves the naming for the elements. They name the elements. We use the IUPAC naming of the elements. International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry approves the name for the elements. Based on IUPAC naming system, some elements have the symbol of the first letter. Hydrogen, H. If I take the example of helium, He, or in some elements they will take the two letters, and the first letter is written in capital and the second letter is written in small letter. For example, hydrogen, capital H, aluminium, Al, and it is not capital A, capital L, it is capital A and small l. For cobalt, C, capital O, small letter, like that. And some symbols of the compound, they have the first letter and the next appearing letter. For example, chlorine, C is the first letter and chlorine next appearing letter is L, so L, Cl. For zinc, Z and N, they don't use the sound letter, like that. And for some elements they will use the Greek or Latin or German names. They use the Latin, German, Greek names. For example, iron, its Latin name is ferrum, so its chemical symbol is Fe. For sodium, its chemical name is natrium, so its chemical symbol is Na. For potassium, its name is kalium, therefore its chemical symbol is K. So unique elements have unique symbols. Okay, so any two elements don't have the same symbol. Okay, their chemical symbol, their chemical name is different and chemical symbol also different. In this picture you can see few elements name and symbol. Aluminium, Al, argon, Ar, barium, Ba, boron, B, bromine, Br, calcium, Ca, carbon, capital C, chlorine, Cl, cobalt, Co. So in this set you can observe that the symbols are given by looking at the first letter and the second letter of the element. In the second set they have little different names. Copper, it is obtained from the place it is found in Cyprus, so Cu. Then fluorine, F. Gold, aurum, color of the gold is yellow, aurum. Then hydrogen, H. Iodine, I. Iron, ferrum. Then lead, plumbum. Magnesium, Mg. Neon, Ne. Then nitrogen, N. Oxygen, O. Potassium, chemical, its Latin name is kalium, means so it have the symbol K. Silicon, Si. Silver, Ag. Then sodium, Na. Nitranium. Then sulfur, S. Uranium, U. Zinc, Zn. So these are the examples for the symbols for some elements. The next concept which I am going to explain is atomic mass. Okay, in the Dalton's atomic theory, he was so explained about this atomic mass. So he took the postulates from different scientists and he explained about the relationship between the atomic mass, the mass of the compound and the reactants. There is he found the relationship between the reactants and the compound, and he told that okay, each element have its own atomic mass and it have its own chemical properties. So this was helped the other scientists to understand, to find the relative atomic mass of the element. Okay, so they try to explain this atomic mass of the element by taking few examples. If I take the example of carbon monoxide, whenever carbon reacts with oxygen, they react in the ratio what? Atomic mass of carbon is 12 and mass of oxygen is 16. So when you divide by 4, it gives you the ratio. Okay, they are reacting the ratio. Atomic mass of carbon is 12 and atomic mass of oxygen is 16. They react in the ratio 3:4. So whenever, okay, if I consider the relative atomic mass of this carbon, what happens? One carbon atom reacts with the oxygen in the ratio 4/3 times the mass of that carbon, mass of oxygen. So one carbon atom reacts with the 4/3 times the mass of the oxygen. So this is how we can find the relationship between the atomic mass of these compounds. Earlier, the atomic mass of an atom is measured in atomic mass unit. After that, now latest in the IUPAC recommendation, we measure the atomic mass of an atom in U. Okay, U is referred for the atomic mass of the carbon atom. So when we consider the atomic mass of carbon as 1 U and the atomic mass, we assign the atomic mass of oxygen as 1.333. So when they combine, they give the product carbon monoxide. Okay, its atomic mass will be relatively equal. Okay, it is relatively near to the whole number. Okay, when these combine, what is the decimal? 1.33, right? So this is closely it is close near to 1. So 1:1. They combined in the ratio 1:1. So this is how the Dalton's theory helped to explain the atomic mass of an element. So this is nearly equal to the whole number. Initially, scientists used this oxygen, okay, naturally occurring oxygen, 1/16th mass of oxygen, to compare the mass of the elements. Okay, they used in order to measure relatively in order to measure the mass of the element, they use this 1/16th mass of an oxygen. Okay, this oxygen compound reacts with most of the metals, and this oxygen reacts with most of the elements, and as well as whenever we compare the mass of the other elements, it gives a mass of the other elements as a whole number. That is why. Then in 1961, okay, the scientists have universally accepted carbon-12 isotope as a unit for the measurement of the mass. So nowadays in order to measure the mass of an atom, we use this carbon-12 isotope. After 1961, we use this carbon-12 isotope, the 1/12th mass of carbon-12 isotope, as a relative measurement of the mass. So we measure the mass of an atom by comparing the mass of this carbon-12 isotope. Okay, we know we are familiar with the different elements, right? We familiar with the different compounds. Okay, H2O and oxygen okay, the oxygen, which is a gas, okay, and then so many examples we can give. Then carbon dioxide. So is it possible to in the real life, is it possible to divide this hydrogen and oxygen? Will we able to get this hydrogen separate and oxygen separate? No, right? This hydrogen and oxygen element does not occur separately in the nature. They are always combined and form the compound. This exists together. We can't separate them. And also oxygen, single oxygen element does not occur in nature. Always oxygen occurs in a nature as oxygen O2 compound, oxygen gas. Then carbon dioxide. All these things we cannot get this single element. So most of the matter around us are in the form of compounds. They are combined by two or more elements, so that we call it as molecules. So this is the oxygen molecules and this is the hydrogen H2 molecules. So let us understand about these things in the next class. In today's class we have discussed about what do you mean by atoms and how the scientists try to explain you about the matter atom, and how they how they gave the names for the different elements. In the next class let us understand about the elements. Thank you, students.